I'm Polly. I'm a mom, a wife, a pelvic floor physical therapist, and founder of No Kegels University. I have helped thousands of women stop leaking, enjoy intimacy, and feel proud of their bodies, even after having kids. After years of listening to women wonder why no one talks about leaking, how they should properly recover after having a baby, and that pleasurable intimacy is possible, I started to get real frustrated because I believe that no mom or woman should struggle when there are answers. It became my mission to shed light on the lack of postpartum care and the lack of discussion on issues that relate to women and their health, even if they can be uncomfortable sometimes. It also became my mission to change the conversation on women's health, the pelvic floor, and more. Here we go. Episode 44. Why do I leak on my menstrual cycle? A couple weeks ago, we were at a friend's house and they were so kind to give my two littles balloons on those long white plastic sticks. And by the time we got home, both of my kids were wrestling and hitting each other and harassing the dogs. And my husband at one point said, "Hey, be careful if you push too hard on those or you try to sit on them," because that was something else they were doing. He said they might pop. And of course, my kids did not listen and they were continue playing and playing and playing. And I look over and both kids are sitting on their respective balloons. And I said, "Hey, did you hear what Dad said? If you keep sitting on them, it's too much. It might pop." And they got off of them and continued doing their thing. And then next thing I know, pop. And of course there were tears. And I said, "Well, yeah, of course that's going to happen. There's a lot of pressure there." And we talked about it and they went back to wrestling. And I don't even know, maybe 30 minutes later, the other balloon was popped. This reminds me a lot of the answer to this question: why do I leak on my menstrual cycle? I get asked this question quite a bit, and you'll notice that's kind of the theme this month for August, is going over some of the questions that I get asked quite a bit. And the very simple answer is that during our menstrual cycle, our uterus drops just a little bit, not very much at all. And so as that uterus drops, it increases the pressure ever so slightly on that pelvic floor. And if you remember from previous episodes, I've talked about one of the jobs of the pelvic floor is to support our organs as well as everything that happens as we bend over and as we squat, which is going to increase the workload of that pelvic floor. So just even as slight as just a little bit of amount of pressure change, of position change with that uterus is going to increase the workload of that pelvic floor. Which, when someone asks me, "Oh, why do I leak while I'm on my menstrual cycle?" and then I answer it just like I did, and then they say, "Oh, okay," and then they move on, I always interject, wait. Do you want to leak while you're on your menstrual cycle? And they'll say, it's fine. And everyone answers a little bit differently, but it's always interesting to me that so many women just assume, okay, if that's what's happening, then that's fine. We can move on. Well, if I get the opportunity, I always like to interject and say, well, but what if you could not leak while you're on your menstrual cycle? Because the mere fact that you are leaking, despite the fact that the uterus is dropping a little bit and changing the workload on that pelvic floor, the other part to consider here is that having leakage of any kind is never acceptable in my book. I want to quickly interrupt and tell you it's here. Bye Bye Leakage, the comprehensive program for pelvic floor strengthening. I recently updated it and I can't wait for you to join. I want you to stop doing Kegels and wondering if they're even working or if you're doing them right. You deserve to know how to effectively and successfully strengthen your pelvic floor, stop leaking when you cough, laugh, jump, sneeze, have pain-free intimacy, improve your energy, and feel proud of your body, even after having kids. Bye-bye Leakage is well worth over $3,000, but I'm offering it to you today for less than a quarter of that price. There are 12 sessions, and each session outlines the same programming that I have given to my patients in the clinic for the past 13 years, where thousands of women have gotten the results that you're only dreaming of. Each session is full of exercises, tips, tricks, and trainings. There's even roadmaps included in Bye-bye Leakage for pregnancy, postpartum, and prolapse. This program has been designed to give you a framework to last you a lifetime. I've also included 3 bonus programs just for you: End the Urgency, Trampoline Strong, and Diastasis Recti 101. You can get it in the show notes, on my website, or in the link in my bio on Instagram at BeyondTheV by Polly. So someone having leakage on their menstrual cycle tells me that their pelvic floor probably is not quite strong enough to be able to adapt to this change, which also makes me wonder, well, with such a minor drop of positioning of that uterus, with that increase in pressure, are they really only having leakage on their menstrual cycle? Because it is just such an ever slight difference, but it can be enough to create leakage because that pelvic floor, the weakness there, it's just magnified, so to speak. Today, I want to offer you a couple of options to consider if you leak on your menstrual cycle. The first is consider the type of exercise. I don't know if you have ever heard of cycle syncing or syncing up with your flow, or there's a book that's called In the Flow, which talks a lot about this. There's a lot of Instagram accounts that talk about this. But the idea that the type of exercise that you perform during your menstrual cycle, the week before your menstrual cycle, the week after your menstrual cycle, and then, of course, 2 weeks after your menstrual cycle, assuming you're regular on this, is the type of exercise that you're doing. And during this time, aggressive exercise is not recommended. And I feel like I need to throw this caveat in there that I'm not asking you to avoid aggressive exercise so you don't leak. I'm suggesting changing up the type of exercise because there has been a lot of research and a lot of insight as it relates to the type of exercise during our menstrual cycle or the luteal phase or ovulation phase. And again, not that I'm suggesting you, I feel like I can't say that part enough, to avoid it, because of course your pelvic floor can become stronger. But consider that your overall health might be best cared for by changing the type of exercise. That would be my first consideration for you. My second consideration for you is to add in more pelvic floor strengthening. And if you're new here, pelvic floor strengthening is not Kegels. And that's another episode. I have done other episodes if you want to dive into that. If you aren't a part of my No Kegels University sorority group, it's free. It's on Facebook. Check the link below in the show notes. And I would love to have you there. I talk about that quite a bit there. I talk about it quite a bit on Instagram. But I'll tell you that doing Kegels is not enough. Your pelvic floor is a lot more complex, a lot more involved, should I say, than what I think a lot of influencers and healthcare professionals lead you to believe. And while that's not necessarily the scope of this episode today, I really want to impress upon your mind that pelvic floor strengthening can look like a lot of different things. And using my method, the VAB3 method, which is V for vertical, A for above, B for below, and 3 for all 3 planes, utilizing that method to strengthen your pelvic floor is a really great way to get you results efficiently and quickly. And if you are interested in learning more, please reach out to me and schedule your pelvic floor's next step call with me, where you and I can go over that in great depth, but also you and I can put together a way for you to continue to strengthen that pelvic floor. Something else I want you to consider is I have recently revamped my signature course, Bye Leakage, a comprehensive strengthening program for the pelvic floor, and it has a large amount of information. There's exercises, there's tips, and the whole program is outlined into 12 different sessions, which, as a physical therapist, when I work with a patient, I don't typically take 12 sessions or 12 visits to work with a patient. So you are getting a large amount of content and guidance and programming in this program in Bye Leakage, and it is at a very affordable price compared to coming to see me for a total of 12 visits. So I would love for you to consider taking a look at that, or at the very least scheduling your pelvic floor's next step call with me, which is free, by the way, that call, so that you can start your pelvic floor strengthening journey. And I had mentioned too that my free group, No Kegels University Sorority, is another way that you can have access to some of the weekly free trainings I do and the weekly free pelvic floor exercises that I share. So feel free to check out the show notes and join me in some of those options. And remember, you're an heiress and a queen and everything in between. If you enjoyed this episode or even wondered if I can help you, check the show notes for more details. And to see what else I'm up to, follow me on the socials at Beyond the V, by Polly. Because I'm changing the conversation on women's health, the pelvic floor, and more, I still need your help. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend or two. See you next week.